Yeah. I just want to make sure that my audio as well as video is clear.
Yeah, it's quite audible.
Audible? Okay.
Yeah.
So, can I start now?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah. So, myself, Dr. Prajit Karadan. I work as a postdoctoral fellow at Hebrew University of Jerusalem. First of all, I would like to thank all the organizers of this webinar for giving me a chance to present in this webinar. And I hope you all are doing good and safe in this Corona time. So today I'm going to discuss about the metal semiconductor hybrid nanohybrids for bio or molecular sensing applications. Outline of my talk: I'll give a brief introduction about the metal semiconductor nanostructures and its applications in various fields. We are going to discuss in detail about a sensor which is fabricated with by using a principle called surface enhanced Raman spectroscopy. I'll give a brief basics of the surface enhanced Raman spectroscopy as well. Then we are going to discuss about the silicon nanopillar silver nanoparticle based nanohybrid system for CRS sensing applications and its biomolecular detection. And finally, a novel metal semiconductor hybrid based electronic detection of molecules. So metal semiconductor hybrid is a kind of booming field. It has many applications in various fields such as photovoltaics, photocatalysis, biomedical and biotechnology applications, photo detection, surface enhanced Raman spectroscopy, etc. Most of these applications relates with the plasmonic properties of the metal nanostructures, which works on the principle of localized surface plasmon resonance. So we'll just with some basics of the localized surface plasmon resonance, what is surface plasmons, what is localized surface plasmons, and what is plasmonic hotspot, etc. Surface plasmons are delocalized electron oscillations at the metal dielectric interface. When the electron cloud associated with the metal nanoparticle vibrates with a particular frequency. When light of resonant wavelength incident on the metal nanoparticle, it vibrate with maximum frequency. That is what is called localized surface plasmon resonance. So here we have a small demonstration which is showing the effect of localized surface plasmon resonance. So we can see like electron cloud vibrate with a particular frequency when a resonant photon wavelength incident on the metal nanoparticle, the electron cloud associated with the metal nanoparticle vibrate with maximum frequency. This effect is known as localized surface plasmon resonance. So if you bring two metal nanoparticles come closer, like less than 10 or 5 nanometer range, then the field in between the point in between the nanoparticle will experience a much more higher field or the highest electromagnetic field because of the interaction of the electromagnetic field associated with the first nanoparticle with the second nanoparticles. This point where it is experiencing a higher electromagnetic field, that particular point is known as plasmonic hotspot. So now we know what is surface plasmons, what is the localized surface plasmon resonance, and plasmonic hotspots. These are the basics of the surface enhanced Raman spectroscopy that we are going to discuss. So before going into detail about the surface enhanced Raman spectroscopy sensor, so I would like to talk something about the Raman scattering. I hope all of you know about the Raman scattering. Raman scattering is nothing but it's a kind of molecular vibrational fingerprint of the molecules. When a light of wavelength lambda incident on a molecule, it undergoes two types of scattering. One is known as Rayleigh scattering, where the wavelength of the scattered light will be equal to the wavelength of the incident light. And when it undergoes inelastic scattering, that is what is called Raman scattering, where sometimes the wavelength of the scattered light will be greater than the wavelength of the incident light, which is known as Stokes Raman scattering. And sometimes the wavelength of the scattered light will be less than that of the incident light. That's what is called anti-Stokes Raman scattering. So this effect was invented by our own renowned scientist, Sir C.V. Raman sir, and who he has awarded a Nobel Prize in 1930 for his discovery with his student K.S. Krishnan at 1928. So typically these Raman signals are very weak. So it's kind of like the probability of happening this Raman scattering, it's like 1 in 10 millions of photons. So to overcome this difficulty, people have started working on the surface enhanced Raman spectroscopy, which enhances the Raman scattering by molecules adsorbed on the rough metal surfaces. The enhancement can be from 10 to the power 6 to 10 to the power 14, depends on the nanostructure which you are using for the making the sensor. So actually, we were thought of making a good SERS sensor. The basic requirement for the for a good SERS sensors, which includes small metal nano features with nano cap, which can produce the plasmonic effect, and a large surface area with nanoscale roughness, which facilitates the accommodation of more number of nanoparticles which can produce the plasmonic effect. And another important thing, it should be reusable and reproducible. By employing all these basic requirements, we have fabricated a silver nanoparticle decorated silicon nanopillars. This is our sensor, and these silicon nanoparticles were fabricated by nanosphere lithography and metal-assisted chemical etching, followed by sputtering of silver film and followed by annealing at 400 degrees Celsius for 5 hours to get a typical sensor. So here we have the detailed growth process for this silicon nanopillar by using metal-assisted chemical etching and nanosphere lithography. We have taken a silicon substrate. On the top of that, we have coated polystyrene nanospheres of some 18 nanometer, and after spin coating, it is like arranged in a self-assembled in a hexagon closed packed structure. And we have done oxygen plasma to separate these polystyrene nanospheres, followed by thin film deposition of gold film of 10 nanometer. Then the removal of this polystyrene nanosphere by chemical method. All these methods together, these 4 steps together is known as the nanosphere lithography. After nanosphere lithography, we'll be having a template of gold on the top of the silicon substrate. So directly we'll place this template of gold with the silicon substrate in a solution which contains HF, H2O2 and ethanol. Then it will perform the metal-assisted chemical etching, and it forms the silicon nanopillars, which is having the same dimension as that of the polystyrene nanosphere, what we have used for making the template. So after removal of the gold, we'll be having a silicon nanopillars grown on the silicon substrate. So here we have the semi-images for the polystyrene nanospheres coated on the top of the silicon substrate. Then the separated polystyrene nanospheres by using oxygen plasma etching. Then we have the cross-sectional image of the silicon nanopillars. So after making the silicon nanopillars, we have decorated the silicon nanopillars by using silver nanoparticles. So this silver nanoparticle possess these plasmonic capabilities. So, excuse me, can you hear?
Yes, continue, please.
Thank you. So we have decorated the silicon nanopillars with silver nanoparticles, and this we are going to use, going to perform surface enhanced Raman spectroscopy studies. So we first of all, we need to check how much enhancement it can produce, how much plasmonic enhancement this sensor can produce. So we have dropcasted, we have selected thiophenol as an analyte for finding the enhancement factor. So we have dropcasted on the top of the silicon, nanopillars. So after recording the Raman, we could see that this sensor is giving an enhanced, surprisingly, it is giving an enhancement factor of 10 to the power 7 to 10 to the power 8. So we have recorded the spectra, Raman spectra, by using green laser of 532 nanometer and red laser of 632 nanometer, 33 nanometer as well. And you can see the corresponding vibrational spectra of the molecule where the intensity is much more enhanced compared to the Raman spectra. So after calculating the enhancement factor, we could see that it is like 10 to the power 7 to 10 to the power 8. So we started employing this for further biomolecule studies. That is what the intention of our project. So we have selected random biomolecules, some different kinds of biomolecules, So first we have checked by using some proteins like BSA and HSA. Those are very similar, structurally very similar proteins, but yet we could detect by using, we could differentiate by using the surface enhanced Raman spectroscopy of this silicon nanopillar based sensor. And lysozyme and DNA, which are another important classes of biomolecules, we could detect by using this sensor. And amyloid beta, which is the protein which is presented in the Alzheimer's disease and which is being detected by the sensor. And we have also checked the detection limit of the sensor, which is like 10 to the power minus 12 molar. It is sensitive up to 10 to the power minus 12 to minus 13 molar of this analytes. So again, we have performed some studies on the dyes like DIS3 and FITC dyes, and also the E. coli bacteria, which is a gram-negative bacteria, which is also detected by using this sensor. And the main important study we have done in red blood cells and the malaria-infected red blood cells. You can see the spectra, which is showing the spectra of red blood cells, the SER spectra of red blood cells, and the malaria-infected, which is IRBC. It is written malaria-infected red blood cells. We could differentiate the malaria-infected cells with the normal RBC. So literally we can detect the malaria by using this sensor. So in the previous slides, I have already mentioned that reusability and the reproducibility of the sensor is also a very important thing. We have tried by reusing the substrate by heating over for 50 after recording the spectra by using some analyte. Then it heated above 450 degrees Celsius and then recorded the spectra. It was showing like nothing, no spectra over there. Then again we dropcasted the molecule, then again recorded the spectra. This we have repeated some 8-9 times and to confirm the reproducibility, reusability of the sensor. And we also checked the reusability of in chemical environment, like we have treated with HCl, then again recorded the spectra, and we confirmed that it is stable against chemical environment as well. So for checking the reproducibility of the substrate, we have dropcasted the molecules at some 8 random positions of the substrate and record the spectra, which is giving almost similar spectra, which is showing the reproducibility of the sensor. In order to get a clear insight about the plasmonic hotspot of our silicon nanopillar based SER sensor, actually we have done some theoretical simulations and the simulation model you can see over here, and we cannot actually model the same, but close enough we could manage to get a model like this. And you can see the top, this is the top view of the simulation model, and we performed the simulation, and you can see the hotspot, how much the electromagnetic field in the vicinity of the nanoparticle is enhanced on applying the laser. So this is the top view, and here you have the cross-sectional view, and we compared with the bare with the substrate with the nanoparticle on the bare silicon as well. You can see the intensity difference in the nanoparticle they have created in silicon. So that's all about this surface enhanced Raman spectroscopy based sensor. So now we are doing something, some more interesting things like metal semiconductor hybrid for electronic detection of molecules. So this is a kind of unique nanostructure which is having a gold cap along with silicon germanium nanowires. So actually this is grown, we call it like a nanofluoride structure. This is grown by using CVD and self-processing synthesis. So in order to make this structure to be stable in the aqueous environment, we have coated with Al2O3 of thickness 2 nanometer by using ALD for the electronic detection of molecules. So here we have the same images for the nanofluoride structure. Yeah, we have employed like a these are the two electrodes. The inner circular one is the one electrode, and the outer circular thing is the second electrode. And we have selectively deposited the nanofluoride so that it will bridge the two contacts, and we apply a voltage, and the current will pass to the nanofluoride structure. So we have recorded the current of the device of the device before and after drop casting of the molecules. After drop casting, in these studies actually we have used the molecules which has more affinity towards gold, like amines or thiols. So it will go and directly bind to the gold part of the nanoflora, and whenever we apply a current, the current will pass through it will tunnel through the molecule, and this is a kind of nano junctions formed. This is the kind of nano junctions formed at the edge of the nanoflora and the titanium electrode. And when we apply a current, the electrons tunnels through the molecules, and it will reach the other junction and is collected by the counter electrode. So this is something beyond a sensor. It is a sensor. It is typically from the resistance based sensor. It is like typically from the current change we can detect a molecule, but this is working on the principle of tunneling. So the electrons tunnels through the molecule so that we can get the molecular fingerprint of the molecule, which is nothing but DIDV. If you plot DIDV, we can get the electronic band structure of the molecules, like ions or some thiols, amines or thiol. So this is something like the work is going on right now. And yeah, this is all about my talk. Like I have already discussed about the surface enhanced Raman spectroscopy sensor and a hybrid material for the electronic detection of molecules. So I would like to thank the Dean Purnima University and also the organizers of this webinar, and my professors, PhD professors, Dr. Harish Pashilia and Professor Chandrabas Narayana, and my professors here, Professor Roy Ershalmi and Professor Yossi Paltiel as well, and Dr. Arvind Kumar for his continuous support and discussion, all science matters. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Prajit. May I know, Dr. Arvind, if you can connect us? Hello? Dr. Arvind? I don't know if Dr. Arvind can connect to us. Meanwhile, I propose that we can take some questions. If he could connect, then we'll try to connect him later.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So, Dr. Prajit, there are questions in the QA section you can find, and please go ahead with the interaction sound.
Just a minute where I can see the questions. Yeah, first question is how it is related to our daily life. Daily life, it is like it is typically a sensor. Like I've shown the applications of the sensor. Like it's not like a commercialized sensor, but these studies are going on. Maybe in future we can make it as a commercial sensor for the detection of some like some biomolecules or some malaria or some disease or kind of studies. Yeah. So in that way, it is related to our daily life. What is the speed, accuracy, and application of these techniques? Yeah, speed in the sense it is like right after you record the spectra and analyze the spectra, you will get the answer. So speed, I don't know, it's we cannot compare it like a commercial sensor kind of thing, like the speed about it. But soon after you just go. But for recording the Raman spectra itself, you need a Raman facility. So it is like if you have a clinical Raman facility, it will be easier for checking. It's like in hospitals or some clinical purpose. If you have a small Raman setup handling like mobile Raman setup, if you have, I think people have started making kind of ramen setup. When I was in JNCSR, Professor Chandrabas Narayana, he started making like a clinical ramen setup. Yeah, so if that is the case, then it will be much more accurate, and it will be much more speedy. Disadvantages of these techniques, yeah, we can detect only the molecules which are ramen active. Maybe that is one of the disadvantages of this technique. It is used only bottom-up approach or some top-down approach. Yeah, actually, in my first project, what I shown, that is kind of metal semiconductor, the silicon nanopillars, Ag combination, silver combination. It is like completely top-down process. Like we are etching from the top to bottom. So in the next second, briefly, I have explained like what we are doing, or what we are going to do right now. That is, in that the hybrid nanomaterial is synthesized. Silicon germanium nanowires are developed by using CVD. This is typically a bottom-up approach. So this hybrid materials we can fabricate both bottom-up approach as well as top-down approaches. So the next question is, which is related to Dr. Arvind Kumar, which techniques is used to synthesize organic, inorganic, hybrid gas sensing materials? I think Dr. Arvind Kumar will be answering for that question. What it can sense radiation through a sensor. Yeah, radiation detectors are available. Like we are doing some photo detectors, like the detectors may be available. I'm not sure about.
Hello.
How do you differentiate tip enhanced Raman spectroscopy with surface enhanced Raman spectroscopy? Yeah, in tip enhanced Raman spectroscopy, it is like basically a FM tip or something, and we will place the molecule between the surface and the tip, and then from the that is through the tunneling through the molecule, we can get the spectra according spectroscopy of the molecule. But in surface enhanced spectroscopy, which mainly hello, can you hear?
Yes.
Yes, please continue.
Yeah. Okay. So that is the main, which this tip enhanced Raman spectroscopy, which works mainly on the principle of tunneling. And here it is like in surface enhanced, but in tip enhanced Raman spectroscopy, it is like much more sensitive. Actually, we can detect even like towards single molecule detection. It is clearly possible by tip enhanced Raman spectroscopy more than CRS. But by using SCRS also, people started working in single molecule level detection. So possible results. Just a minute. And applications of manufacturing.
Hello, Dr. Prajeet.
So I missed some questions. I think sensors are helpful in explain advanced material. Why is it specific with the other material? Current question. Any current applications being manufactured in industries? I didn't get that question actually. Use of nanorobotics. What are the mechanism of nanoparticle growth? Yeah. So here we have used for the nanoparticle growth. Here we have used, in the first case, we have used thin film deposition by using sputtering. Then we have annealed it around 400 degrees Celsius for 5 hours to get a nanoparticle drop, nanoparticle of silver nanoparticle of around size less than 30 to 70 nanometer. Helpful in today. These sensors are helpful in today's crisis situation. Maybe you are thinking like some virus detection. It is not at all, because we need much more accurate analysis or sensing setup or for the detection of this coronavirus and all. So it won't be, I don't know, but I could not see any literature where they have used surface enhanced Raman spectroscopy or this electronic detection to employ this coronavirus detection. Explain what's advanced materials. Advanced materials have different meanings actually. Yeah, advanced materials, it is like 2D materials is an advanced material. Then hybrid material, some combination of two materials, it's an advanced material. Composites materials is an advanced material. It has different dimensions actually. The current applications, what is the use of? What is the use of?
I think you have covered most of the question, Dr. Prajit, I must say.
If you have any further questions and all, I'm already, I'll be available online throughout the day, or whenever you want, you can approach me at any time. Whatever it's possible from my side, I'll be grateful to help you.
Sure. Thank you so much. We will create the platform accordingly and we'll update you. Like the Samyak explained before, that the portal will be available to question, and anyone can question, put their questions on the YouTube link as well, and we'll in consultation with you, will create this thing and we'll post it on the website. I will now try to connect with Dr. Arvind if he can, if he is available. Dr. Arvind, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great, sir. So are you good to go now?
Yeah, I'll try.
Please try. Thank you. And you can keep your video off, because it sometimes reduces the bandwidth. You can go ahead with the presentation and it will be fine with the voice.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. If you can quickly,
I was explaining the response curve.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you can quickly review from the beginning, it will be nice, because it was not audible at that time. Just quick review and then you can continue. Thank you.
So I was discussing about the necessity of the gas sensor. These gas sensors are extremely important for environmental monitoring, as we know that there are many pollutant gases that have adverse effect on human health as well as our ecosystem. Another, like industry, also there are emission of the very harmful gases. So these devices are very useful. Second, like what is a gas sensor? It is a device that can detect and identify the gas species. And different type of methods have been developed. Among these, the chemi-resistive gas sensors are very popular, and they have many advantages like high sensitivity, small size, cost effective, fast response, and easy operation. And chemi-resistive sensor work on the principle that whenever the gas adsorbs at the surface of sensing material, their resistance changes. So this resistance change can be used as a sensing signal. So there are many parameters that determine the performance of a gas sensor. First is the sensitivity. The sensitivity can be defined as the ratio of the resistance in presence of gas and the resistance in presence of air. And this can be extracted from the response curve. This is a very important curve for the gas sensors. This is nothing but a resistance versus time graph. As you can see that this is the base resistance, means when there is no gas, but when the gas is adsorbed at the surface, or then its resistance changes and it becomes saturated. And when the gas is removed, then it comes in original states. So the resistance here, that in presence of air, and the resistance here, that is Rg. So Rg by Ra is sensitivity. Second, the time taken by the sensor to reach the 90% of the saturation value is called response time. And when we remove the gas, then the time taken by the sensor to reach the 10% of this saturation value is called recovery time. Another important factor is the selectivity. The selectivity of a sensor is the ability that it can differentiate of the target gas when we analyze this sensor in presence of other gases, other interfering gases. So you can understand these parameters by this graph. This is the sensitivity for a particular sensor. You can see that sensitivity is very high for the chlorine gas, but for other gases the sensitivity is very less. So we can say this particular sensor is very selective for the chlorine gas, but it's not selective for NO2 or H2S like that. Second parameter is the linearity. So linearity means if we draw a graph between sensitivity and gas concentration, that should be linear. So here you can say that this is the sensitivity and this is the gas concentration for a particular sensor. So this graph shows that our sensor shows linearity. So if it is not linear, then we cannot predict the concentration of the unknown gases. Second is the detection limit, that the lowest concentration of the target gas that is sensors can detect. For example, suppose a sensor can detect 1 ppm or higher concentration, so we can say that the detection limit of this sensor is 1 ppm. Second is the life cycle. Life cycle is nothing but means the sensors operate continuously with time. Another important parameter is the operating temperature. Why it is important? Because if sensor operate at higher temperature, then we need the heater. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay. So I was discussing the operating temperature. The operating temperature means suppose our sensor operates at high temperature. So we need a heater, an extra power supply, an extra electronic circuit. So that means if a sample that is operable at a room temperature is very attractive, because we no need to any kind of additional circuit or heater. So most of the research efforts are being paid to fabricate the sensor which can operate at a room temperature. Now, general requirement of the gas sensor. Okay. The sensor should show high sensitivity, means it should produce large signals for small concentration of gases. Second, it should be fast, means the recovery and response should be fast. Selectivity that I have discussed, the sensor should be selective for particular gases. Low power consumption means it should be operated at a room temperature, stable, and the cost as well. These are the other application of this sensor like household safety, mining process, environment monitoring, and industry process control, food quality and safety monitoring. Now I'll discuss about the materials that is used for the chemi-resistive sensing technology. Actually, inorganic metal oxides are widely used for this purpose. The example of inorganic metal oxides are SNO2, zinc oxide, copper oxide, like that. Second is the organic materials like molecular semiconductor, small molecule, and conducting polymers as well. The example of these organic semiconductors are like metal phthalocyanine, polyaniline, polypylor, like that. Now I'll discuss about the advantage and disadvantage of inorganic metal oxide. Inorganic metal oxide shows good sensitivity, good chemical stability, and their sensitivities can further be enhanced by creating the nanostructure, because these nanostructure provide the high surface to volume ratio. But the main disadvantage of inorganic semiconductor is that these inorganic metal oxides operates at higher temperature, like 200 and 400 degrees centigrade. As I discussed that we need additional heaters and like that. So this is the main advantage for their smart devices application. Second, these sensors shows poor selectivity. Another disadvantage is that because this sensor operates at high temperature, so if we keep the sensor at higher temperature continuously, some temperature induced growth may take place, and they can degrade the performance or sensitivity of the sensors. Now these are the examples of organic materials. Like you can see, this is the phthalocyanine, and the advantage of this organic material is that we can tune their properties very easily. For example, this is a p-type material, but if we attach the fluorine group of this phthalocyanine, it became n-type, from p-type to n-type. Second, if we attach sulfonated group, this phthalocyanine can be soluble in water. So water soluble, we can easily coat on any substrate like solution process technique that is very cost effective and easy. These are the example of polymer that I have discussed, the conducting polymers. Now, advantage of organic materials are that they source high sensitivity and response and recovery, full response and recovery at room temperature. First, BPB level, they are very selective, low cost and simple fabrication process. As I discussed that they can be soluble in a water and some solvent, so we can easily coat using solution process technique. Mechanical flexibility and tunable properties that I have just discussed. So mechanical flexibility, that is in this graph you can see this is the resistance in flat condition. When we bend it, the resistance is changed, and again if we further bend, the resistance is again changing, and in flat condition again the resistance revert back to its original value, means their electrical properties is not changing if we bend it. Second, the ability to detect ppb level concentration. In this response curve you can see that these sensors are capable to detect the concentration down to 5 ppb level. Second, they are good selective. This is the selectivity data. This particular sensor is very selective to the chlorine. You can say that this sensitivity is very high as compared to other interfering gases. So these are the advantages of organic semiconductor materials or polymer materials. But they suffer many disadvantages. For example, they show poor stability in ambient condition. Second, the sensing layer degrades upon the continuous exposure of target gases, and their sensitivity deprived in humidity condition. In this graph, it is clear that if we continuously expose this sensor with the target gas, here the chlorine gas is used. After some concentration, this sensor, the sensitivity is degrades. You can see that for 2000 ppb, the sensitivity is less as compared to 500 on 1000. So means that the stability is the issue. Second, that if we leave the sample in open condition or ambient environment, and if we measure the sensitivity with time, the sensitivity is decreasing. So means the stability is a problem in case of organic materials. Now then, what is the approach? So a promising approach for improving the gas sensing properties of these inorganic and organic material is hybrid approach. So with this approach, we can overcome the disadvantage that is shown by inorganic and organic materials by designing the new organic inorganic hybrid materials. These inorganic organic hybrid materials show additional properties. I'll give one example that, for example, like a PN junction diode. In PN junction diode, the diode characteristics is purely due to the heterojunction effect. And this diode action, this diode properties cannot be achieved or cannot be get by individual p-type or n-type materials. So like that, these organic inorganic hybrid materials have the advantage of both materials, and whereas they can show some additional properties. So because of this fact, the research on this inorganic organic materials are continuously increasing with time. You can see in this graph. The reference is given here. Now, as an example that you can see in this, you can see here that ZNO is an inorganic metal oxide, and this is the nanowires of zinc oxide, and we have coated as cobalt phthalocyanine over this zinc oxide, and this heterojunction shows better sensitivity as compared to individual materials. You can see in this graph. You can see here in this graph, this is the response curve for hybrid materials. This is the blue one response curve for cobalt phthalocyanine, and this is the for nanowires. So you can see that hybrid material shows better sensitivity. It shows more sensitivity as well as fast response and recovery time as compared to cobalt phthalocyanine and zinc oxide nanowires. Moreover, these sensors, these heterojunction sensors shows good selectivity. You can see that the selectivity is measured in presence of other gases. You can say this is very highly selective towards H2S gas. Further, the stability. In stability, you can see that this is the resistance of the sensor in presence of air, and this is the resistance of the same sensor in presence of H2S. You can see the resistance is very stable over the time. So means the stability of this inorganic organic hybrids materials is also improving. Now these are just some latest example that is recently published in which same approach has been used for improving the gas sensing properties of this organic inorganic hybrid sensors. So furthermore, actually I have discussed only organic inorganic hybrids, but there is like inorganic or organic hybrid materials also there, and these materials have many applications not only in gas sensing technology but also in biomedical application, electronic devices, optoelectronic devices, and wearable electronic devices, and in these devices that is made of organic and inorganic hybrid materials shows better performance in comparison to the individual ones. So Dr. Prajit already discussed his part, so I stop my presentation here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this quick review of detailed presentation. I understand there are a lot of questions there in QA section, sir, for you. If you could have a look at them. On your screen, you can see there's a QA section, and there all the questions are listed.
First is the which technique is used to synthesize the organic and inorganic hybrid gas sensing materials. Actually, for particular application that I have seen that we have used the inorganic nanowires, and then we have deposited halocyanine films on the top of these Giardino nanowires. So this is the kind of heterojunction interfaces. But there are a lot of methods are available for making the hybrid inorganic organic hybrids. For example, sol gel methods also, like during polymerization they are putting some nanoparticles, and polymer and nanoparticles kind of inorganic organic hybrids are forming. So a lot of methods are there, but in particular techniques I have used this hydrothermal growth of Giardino nanowires, and then thermally evaporated these COPC layers. In a what it can possible to sense the radiation through sensor, what sensors. Actually, in that similar approach have also been utilized for improving the light sensing properties. So in that cases, like these some materials that that shows the change in their resistance or conductivity if we expose to the light or radiation. So there are some limitation like that, and if we use the hybrid approach, there are many reports that in which the performance of this light sensor is also improving. Do the sensor are very, yeah, of course, that because this sensor can be used in the environment monitoring, and today's that air pollution and is very critical issue. But I don't know if you are talking about this coronavirus, that I'm helpless. It's not this sensor is not for that application. But for environment, it's like in your that why we are. I want to add one thing, that now the peoples are using the self power sensor. Suppose in your smart device, suppose if we put a sensor that can harness the environment energy, so that you can take the data in your mobile only. So your mobile can be a sensing device. Suppose you are going in some place, you can check that what type of pollutant and harmful pollutants are there. So you can use this sensor in your smart mobile sensing. So for that purpose, now this room temperature operation is also needs some external power supply to generate the sensing signal. So now the people are using self power sensing devices in which they are putting some power unit that can harness the environment energy, and this they can convert the environment energy into electricity, and this will provide the power to the sensor. So for example, suppose in the vehicle, if it can generate the electricity from the vibration of the engine, and it can detect what is the emission from the exhaust. So this can be used like that. Explain advanced materials. Why is it specific with other materials? I didn't understand fully, but like that, I've seen that. Suppose that when we are making this hybrid or advanced materials, we are we are keep this application. For example, suppose in gas sensing application, I'm keeping this particular application and I'm modifying the materials in such a way. Suppose if I want to use in the light sensing application, my approach will be different. I will be using the different materials. The problem in this hybrid materials that we have lot of choice. So we have to choose the materials very carefully on the basis of the application, what application we need. Any current application being manufactured in the industry? Yeah, in industries like I have seen that in most of the companies that they are using in organic metal oxide based sensor. But these sensors, suppose if we are using these sensor in a place where we know only chlorine gas is there, not other gas is there, so you can use. But when you are using your sample in such a place when you don't know where the other gases is also present, so selectivity is important factor. So nowadays that the R&D unit of these sensors companies, they are working to reduce the operating temperature. Second, they are improving the selectivity and they are using this hybrid approach. For example, they are using metal nanoparticles on the zinc oxide or other inorganic metal oxide, and they are improving the catalytic activity of the particular target gases. So like that they are doing. Actually, what are the gases? What are the gases that can be detected by this type of sensor? Actually, for this sensor that I have discussed, it is made for H2S. But again, we have purposely made this sensor selective to the H2S. Suppose if we are using, if we want to fabricate a sensor that is selective to the chlorine, then we will choose the different combination of the materials. Like that in phthalocyanate, the central metal atoms plays an important role. So by tuning the properties of organic material, we make the sensor very selective to the particular gases. So purposely we are making, like suppose if you ask me that this sensor is used for H2S, not for Cl2, we made this purposely like for H2S only. So if we want to use for other gases, we have to use the other combination. Can you hear my voice? Whatever. Okay. What is the smallest change a sensor can detect? That depend on the sensor. And nowadays that lowest detection limit down to 5 ppb level has been reported. But in some sensor they are showing 1 ppm. Some sensors showing 5 ppm. So this depend on the sensor and the sensing materials. Application of machine learning, that I don't know. What is the carbon fiber? Yeah, that this in Visakhapatnam gas leakage happened. That so these sensors aren't able to prevent these stages. Yeah, actually that in if I'm not wrong, in somewhere the hydrogen was leaked. So in that cases that they have used the hydrogen sensor as well as they have used the catalytic bearing card. These catalytic bearing card, these sensors were able to tell that there is a leakage of hydrogen, and the catalytic bearing card that is attached to this sensor, they are converting the hydrogen into the water. So like that they you can avoid this type of mishappening if we use this type of sensor. But some gases are very explosive. So in that cases that rated at high temperature. So some sensor are there, they can detect the flammable gases, but they operate at a high temperature. So in that condition, they avoid the use of sensors. What is the disadvantage of gas sensor? I don't think the disadvantage, but if disadvantage for particular sensor or particular materials, that I can substitute to of plastic. Is this technique portable enough to use the on-site detection of? Yeah. Is this technique portable enough to be used for outside detection of pollutant level in the automobile exhaust? Yeah, these sensors are using in the automobile exhaust, but with that sensor they are using also catalytic, some catalytic, I don't know what is that, some catalytic is there. So one is the sensor that will tell you that there is a harmful emission, and then second will the solution that this catalytic will convert the harmful emission to the unharmful emission. For example, like nitrous oxide can be converted into the nitrogen oxide or nitrogen or oxygen. So like that it is using in automobile application. What is the speed, accuracy, and application of the application I have already discussed. Speed, speed means that the response time that we have discussed, in particular, that depend on the sensor, but in particular sensor that I have discussed, its speed around 100 second. In 100 second, it is reaching to 90% of its saturation value. And the accuracy is that it can detect down to 1 ppm level. Yeah. Can you repeat your question? Yeah. Yeah, actually, that uh, copper nanoparticles and palladium nanoparticles have been used, and they have, if we goes with this metal semiconductor application, this shows the they improve the selectivity as well as sensitivity of the particular target gases. So like palladium, we can say palladium we have used, and this copper also, copper nanoparticles we have used, and we have seen that this shows good results.
I think a lot of questions have already been discussed. I must say thank you so much to both these speakers for sparing their time and interacting in such a nice manner. And I apologize for the technical glitch in the beginning, but it's okay now. So over to you, Dr. Preeti.
To panelists, IONS team, and for my university panel for sparing their valuable time. Thank you so much, and see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. in another session of the web series, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you.
Once again.
Thank you. Take care. Stay safe.